All right, let's learn a chord. Now, when we learn a chord, when you start as a beginner, you go to a book and it has 100 guitar chords that everybody should know, and you look at a picture and you put your fingers in that shape and you hit the strings, and bam, if you're in tune, you've got a chord, and hopefully it's the same one that's in the book. But as you move along, you begin to see and understand that chords are a little more complex. So the chord that we're going to look at today is a minor 7 flat 5 chord. Before we get into that chord, I'm just going to take a look at a chord progression that is a 1 chord to a 4 chord to a 4 minor to a 1. So here's a 1 chord, 4 chord, lower the 3, that's the 1, 4, 4 minor, 1, 1, 4 minor, 4, 4 minor, 1, 1, or 1, 4, 4 minor, and 1. In order to get that 4 minor in the key of C, we lower the A note and take that A note, the sixth of the scale, and we lower it to an A flat note, and that gives us the F minor chord. Right, so all we're doing is taking the third of the F chord, which is the sixth in the key of C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the third in the F chord, 1, 3, 5. We lower that third, and then we have an F minor. Okay. Now, an F chord, a D minor chord is relative to an F major chord, or vice versa. F major is relative to a D minor. The relative minor of F major is D minor. Let's put it that way, okay? The relative minor of F major is a D minor. And the D minor chord, actually, if we were to play it as a D minor 7, the chord would be spelled D, F, A, and C. So a D minor 7 is like an F chord with a D in the root. Okay, got that? So they're very, very closely related. The 4 chord of F and the D minor chord are relative. They share all of the same notes with the exception of the D. Right? So a 1 chord, let's go look at this. A 1 chord to a 4 is really common. You've heard it a million times before. Or 1, you hear the similarity. Okay, if I make those 7th chords, okay, now we're going to take that D minor 7 and we're going to lower the A note as we did in the F chord, right? Now we have, you can hear that, right? It's the same function. It functions as a subdominant minor, okay? there's our D minor 7 flat 5, which is a substitute for an F minor chord in the key of C, of course. It's a substitute for a 4 minor. Now let's take a look at what's happening here guitaristically. We've got this shape like this, right? But if we take this same shape and we move it down to here, it's no longer a minor 7 flat 5 in terms of the way it functions. Here it's a 2 chord, a minor 7 flat 5, coming out of the parallel minor key. So this chord really belongs in the key of C minor. But if we move it down to here, it belongs as the 7th chord, the 7 chord in the key of C major, right? So this functions like a G7 chord. This functions as a D minor 7 flat 5 chord, or the 2 chord. So we have 2 chord, 5 chord, and 1 chord. Now let's look at a musical example, a really common jazz standard. And as you can see in this jazz standard, the first chord is a D minor 7 flat 5. And then that moves to a G7, and which we could play like this. This chord here becomes a G9 when we just add a G root. Let the bass player do that. Okay, so 2 from a minor key, parallel minor key, like a 5 chord to the 1, right? So this D minor 7 flat 5 has an A flat in it. That doesn't belong in an A flat. There's no A flat in the key of C, but there is an A flat in the key of C minor. That's a big deal if you want to learn to improvise over. And then all the notes in this chord are in the key of C. A flat, and then C major, C minor, C major, right? So a D minor 7 flat 5 chord functions like an F minor chord, or like a 4 minor chord. On the guitar fretboard, the D minor 7 flat 5 chord, if we move it, also functions as a 5-9 chord, right? Or if you like, just a G7 chord. If you've ever watched players like Joe Pass or Tel Farlow, Herb Ellis, you'll notice that they're moving chords around, but they're not making a lot of really difficult changes. And that's because they understand how the chords function. And this is just a really great example of that. So this minor 7 flat 5 chord functions as a 2 chord borrowed from the parallel minor key. And when you move that chord down to semitone below the tonic, it functions as a 5 chord, which resolves to the 1 chord. And that's 2 minor 7 flat 5 chord. Functions like a 9 chord or a 5 chord. So I hope that made sense. Minor 7 flat 5 chord. As a matter of fact, many chord sounds function in different ways. In this case, the D minor 7 flat 5 chord functions as a subdominant minor. When you move that, it functions as a 5/7 dominant, right? When you move it to a semitone below the tonic, and then resolves to the 1 chord. Of course, the same thing will apply in any key for other tunes. You'll see that 2 minor 7 flat 5 chord in either a major key or a minor key. Maybe that was too much for one lesson, but you tell me. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you soon.